After a tough showing the week prior, Auburn basketball responds in a huge way and gets their biggest win of the year on the road, no less. And that is what we're going to talk about on this episode of the Auburn Daily podcast. Auburn basketball is back in the driver's seat for the SEC regular season hunt. Joining us is Andrew Stefaniak, writer of auburndaily.com, knower of basketball. Andrew, we're feeling good again. We recorded this last week. We weren't feeling good, but we're feeling good. So let's jump right into it. I'm your host, Alex, better known on the socials at Auburn Memes. Andrew Stefaniak at Andrew Stefaniak on all the socials there. Tell me your favorite thing about this Ole Miss win. What did you see that were like, finally, it happened?
Yeah, so this was one I was actually heading to go cover a game. And so I was watching the first half on my phone, and I was just like, I was just so grumpy. Because I was in this like, we can't win away from Neville Arena. And it irks the literal pants off of me. I mean, it is the most frustrating thing in the world. And then they turned it on. That was one of my favorite. My dad and I talked. I mean, that was one of our favorite Auburn basketball wins in a while. And winning a game away from Neville, I don't care if it's Vandy. I don't care if it's Missouri. I don't care if it is Loyola, Maryland. Don't care. If you win away from Neville Arena, especially in the SEC, it feels good. In this one, especially, I mean, we all know the narratives that were surrounding this game. You got Flanagan, you got a courtside Morgan Freeman, you got Lane Kiffin, poking fun, Wes Flanagan, the coach. And I mean, there was a lot going on in this game and a lot stacked up against Auburn. And Ole Miss wanted this game bad. It was very evident. I mean, give credit to those fans. It was a really good atmosphere. But nevertheless, Auburn finds a way. Incredible second half, 56 points in the second half for one of my favorite Auburn wins in a long time, and definitely my favorite win this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the stats in front of me. That might be the most points Auburn has scored in a half this season, even against some of their just quad four games that they were just bullying teams. Incredible timing, incredible to do it on the road. And Ole Miss is not a bad basketball team by any stretch of the imagination. Before we get too far into that, because that definitely is going to take the meat and potatoes of this, I do want to shout out the Vandy win, because that was one of those games that kind of had people on the edge of their seats, where it's like, for the first few games of the SEC schedule, sort of flash in the pan. Did this loss to Mississippi State, did this loss to Alabama, did it take some of the wind out of the sails? Is this team going to get caught tripping on themselves? Because here's the thing about it, is they ended up losing that Vanderbilt game, which would have been a quad 4 game.
Yeah.
So at that point, you can really start to panic, and your season could just be in a tailspin downward. No bouncing back from something. I mean, I would say no bouncing back, but the bounce back would be very, very hard. And there were some reasons to be nervous going into that one. But here's the deal. Auburn did the thing against them. The first half, they had 37 points. The second half, that one, they had 44. So played a little bit stronger of a second half against Vanderbilt. Second half there. 10-point game. You started feeling good to it, but that one kind of started a little on the slower side. But Auburn took care of business there, did pretty much everything they needed to do, got a good home win, dominated on the plus-minus stats, which is wild. Janai Broome in that Vanderbilt game had a plus-minus of 40, which is just absolutely freaking bananas. They shot the ball almost 40% from deep, so that was good to see. Did what they needed to do against Vandy, set a good foundation. I think most people expected that. If it hadn't been a win there, it would have been sort of like a crisis mode, but that should be a game you always feel good about. That is the only quad 4 SEC game on the schedule for Auburn thus far. You won it by nearly 30 points. Feel good about that. Now, you go back and you circle Ole Miss. You kind of sit there at Ole Miss, you look, all right, there's your crossroad games. You lose this game to Ole Miss on the road, you really start feeling a little nervous about if the SEC hunt is really obtainable, especially due to the fact that you've got, as of right now, quad one games remaining on the schedule. Very tough. I mean, 1/3 of the schedule has almost half of the quad one games remaining, to kind of put that in perspective. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. So if you lose that Ole Miss game, it might get a little bit tougher to do that. Then you've got a few more losses stacked against you compared to you and the rest of the SEC. It was going to get tough. Now, very good for Auburn because Kentucky lost over the weekend. So really, you're looking at Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee as the teams you really need to root for to lose to help have the wins to win the SEC regular season and also help bolster the fact at the very least you'll get that double bye going into the SEC tournament. Regardless of all that, Auburn not only beat Ole Miss on the road, it wasn't some chippy win. It was a team he beat by, I think, 23 points at home. So you think, okay, could we at least beat them by single digits on the road comfortably? And that first half, it was not a comfortable feeling. That was a very bad first half of basketball. You saw the post game aspect about Chad Baker-Mazar going in the locker room, kicking out the coaches, and just getting after the team. Somebody made a joke that on Twitter that as something along the lines of, like, I want to believe that Chad Baker-Mazar went in there and just yelled at the team passionately in Spanish, and they didn't understand what he said, but they just kind of took it. They just kind of took it in stride, and then he responded to that laughing. So he thought it was funny. It was a good joke. So, Andrew, before we get into this, I want you to do a nice breakdown of sort of the situation Auburn has running the net, kind of where they are with the quad game. So before we do that, I want to thank a sponsor, because what day is it today when we're recording? It is a Monday, correct?
Unfortunately.
You know, I don't even know why it's a Monday or not, because I have not had my Plains coffee today. Have you had your Plains coffee yet?
I haven't this morning, and that's why I'm a little not there. I need some.
Yeah, so if you're looking on the cameras, you're looking at those two guys, and you're like, oof. Yeah, it's because we have not had our Plains coffee. If we had our Plains coffee today, we'd be glowing right now. Why Plains coffee is awesome? One, they got a ton of good flavors. It's awesome, but it's fresh. They're going. If I'm ordering that Plains coffee, it was ground the day before it gets to my house. It's 24 hours or less. Fresh beans. Throw that thing in the coffee maker. Get some high quality stuff. Whether you drink your coffee black or you like a little bit of flavor to it, it does not matter. It is the bomb. It's going to ship right to your doorstep, mailbox, whatever your living situation is. They'll get it there quick. Free shipping too, which is always good. But on top of free, we're basically giving away some free money here with this discount code. Just put in Auburn at checkout. Get 10% off. So we're hooking you up with even more free money if you're a coffee person and would love to support this show. Helps out a ton. Visit plainscoffee.com, order coffee, and that doesn't matter. You don't have to just be in Auburn to do that. That is anywhere. The Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, they will deliver it anywhere. Throw that in there, get it. And if coffee's not your thing, they do have teas as well. So if you're a tea drinker or want to be a tea drinker, want some high-quality teas as well, Plains Coffee, despite its name, they still got teas. So check them out. I want to thank them for supporting the show. If you're getting some, use that coupon code right there. All right, Andrew. Let's break down Auburn's net situation right now. So this was the first quad one win. I think a lot of people hear quads, nets, rankings. Give us a little breakdown of kind of what that means, short or small and big picture.
Yeah. So the net rankings, I've learned a lot about them. It was something, one of those things back in the day, people would say the net rankings and you'd be like, okay, cool, great. But like not know much about it. So I did a lot of research on it heading into this year to be able to write more on it. I never had written much about it before, but basically, back in the day, they used to use those, what was it? The RPI. They got rid of the RPI heading into the 2020 season and started using the net rankings. Basically, the net rankings, it takes into factors things like net efficiency, winning percentage, adjusted win percentage, and that is all the kind of nerdy mumbo jumbo of it that's still a little hard to understand, but those are the metrics that make their rankings. But what matters is where the rankings lie. So, for example, this is how it works. A quad one win. If a team in the net rankings is ranked 1 through 30 and you beat them at home, that is a quad one win. If they are ranked 1 through 50 and it is a neutral site game, that is a quad 1 win. If they are ranked 1 through 75 and it is a true road game, that is a quad 1 win. So quad 2, 31 through 75 at home, is a quad 2 win. 51 through 100 neutral site is a quad 2 win. Away, 76 through 135 is a quad 2 win. Quad 3, 76 through 160 at home is a quad 3 win. 101 to 200 on neutral site is a quad 3 win. And then 135 to 240, a true road game, is a quad 3 win. Last quad here is quad 4. A home game, 161 through 353 is a quad 4 win. 201 through 353 is a quad 4 win in neutral site. And then 241 through 353 in a true road game is a quad 4 win. So, of course, you want to pick up quad 1 and quad 2 wins. And while as important as winning quad 1 and quad 2 games is, losing quad 3 and quad 4 games is just as important. You cannot lose quad 3 and quad 4 games. So, of course, Auburn has not done that yet. Auburn has one quad 2 loss, and it's just barely a quad 2 loss because Appalachian State is now 76. They're one spot away from it being a quad 1 loss. So that's kind of the way it works. And you really want to win quad 1 games, win quad 2 games, and don't lose quad 3 and 4 games. And right now, Auburn was able to pick up their first quad 1 win over Ole Miss, which is going to really help down the stretch.
So just to clarify some of that aspect there, the numbers he's talking about is the opponent's ranking in the net.
Yes.
So when he says 1 through 50 or 75, whatever, that is what your opponent is ranked in the net. Auburn is currently ranked 8th in the net. Yes. Why the net is important for those that aren't super familiar with the net is March Madness time. That's what they're looking at. Yeah. That is what the tournament committee, the people that build the tournament, the all-knowing tournament gods, these are the numbers that they are using to determine seeding, all that good stuff. So your net ranking matters. What you see on TV's AP. AP is a feel-good number. We've seen many times through the years that AP voters are not necessarily the most informed voters, nor are they the best or accurate. Because what ends up happening is AP voters can be all over the place. Are you guaranteed that they're necessarily going to watch all of the games? Are you going to be super tuned in with everything that's going on? Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes they will just literally copy Ken Palm. Sometimes they will copy net. Sometimes they will just what feels like they are just pulling straws. And that a few years ago when Auburn was ranked number 1, you had these random AP voters, I'm not going to say names, but y'all know who I'm talking about, that were putting Auburn in the teens, and everybody else had them top 4, if majority number 1. So all it takes is one just jackwagon. We'll keep this family friendly here to just get that out of whack. The net is going to be much more data driven, much more analytically driven.
Yeah.
And the nice part about the net too is it is not a concrete ranking. It is fluid. So you mentioned earlier, App State had moved around. So
yes,
what could be a quad 1 win at the beginning of the season has the ability to change if that team starts performing worse.
And that's a great point I want to add here. That's what has hurt Auburn. Let's call a spade a spade. USC, Indiana, some of these games we thought would be quad 1 games, So the folks that are saying Auburn doesn't have any quad 1 wins, I mean, if you really look at this, when they made this schedule, you anticipated USC and Indiana being really good basketball teams and being potential quad 1 games. So it fluctuates. It's forever changing. Ole Miss could slip out of being a quad 1 game. I mean, That's just the reality here.
So when's the last time that happened?
Yeah.
And it's crazy. The highest quad 2 that they have right now is St. Bonaventure. Isn't that right?
Let me pull it up.
Because I think it's because it's on a neutral, because it was a neutral game. I think your highest quad.
St. Bonaventure is ranked nicely at the 69 spot.
Yep, nice. Virginia Tech, I think, is your best home game. So you kind of sit there and you're like, I don't think many people had it on their bingo card that Indiana, which was a stout win, that was an awesome game.
Yes,
and then USC would have been that low, but you just never know how it goes. But if a team that you beat early in the season, a game that you didn't really think about, goes up. I want to say Bradley last year was one of those games where Auburn just beat up on them, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, they were doing pretty well in their division, and then that was one that kind of bolstered Auburn's status. So you always have some of those that are just like, okay, didn't see that one coming. And that's kind of the beauty and the beast of the net. And honestly, I wish they had a similar deal for football, because the problem with football is we don't really know what the playoff committee does as far as like where they're seeing things. But for many, many years, you had that situation of you'd have a team that was like really, really hyped preseason. A team beats them, and then they go and win like 6 games the rest of the year, but they were like top 5 at the beginning of the year. So it just looks like, oh, that team had a ranked win. That wasn't really a ranked win. And it's
Yeah.
sort of like, are the AP voters really remembering that? Like, do you really trust the computers to do whatever? Do you really trust the committee and whatever? So it's nice to see that you have a system here in basketball that at least accounts for the big picture for the
Yeah.
entirety of the season. So I personally, I'm pro net ranking. I like how it works. So we don't
I do
necessarily have to
too.
talk about RPI just because it isn't relevant
Yeah.
anymore. But there were some differences to it. If you're curious about that, go research it on your own. Didn't work exactly the same way. So when you think, I mean, the net isn't perfect. I mean, it definitely has its cons, but there is never going to be any sort of perfect ranking system in sports in general. So regardless here, Auburn has 4 quad 1 games. The ones they've lost were Baylor, Alabama, Mississippi State. And of course, they did win Ole Miss. And the good news is for those games, they were all fairly close. Like you didn't have a quad 1 loss blowout.
Yeah.
And even some of those games got a little bit further away from them just because of foul trouble. I mean, Alabama was a 1-point game till Auburn started fouling. So Baylor was a similar situation. I don't think it was necessarily a 1-point game. I don't think it was within a score or two.
Well, Auburn
And
was up double digits in that one at one point too as
yeah,
well. I mean, you know.
so Mississippi State was really your ugliest loss, and that was just that was Auburn's just bad game. But as far as what's coming up next, you obviously have Alabama, Florida. Kentucky's like technically a fringe quad 1 game because they're 26 or like 25 would count it because it is at home for Auburn. And then that probably will be one. And then Tennessee, and then you got a bunch of quad 2s, and your only quad 3 are going to be Missouri and Georgia in the season, which is probably a nice way to kind of scale it out. Because I know Auburn in the past has ended it with like a Tennessee or Alabama right there toward the stretch. It was kind of nice to like, okay, let's just coast into the runway to get to the SEC tournament and get some of the harder stuff out right before the end. Now, that doesn't mean you ignore those quad 3 games, because you lose a quad 3 game at the end of the season, that could be dangerous. But
Yeah.
I've got a hot take on this, okay?
Okay.
And I want you to hear me out on this. I think if Auburn beats Alabama and Kentucky, they can win the SEC.
Here's my only concern, and I'll be really honest with you. I think Auburn got dealt a bad hand of cards, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Tennessee's really, really, really good. You play them once, and it's on the road.
Yeah.
So you finish.
I don't see that. That to me, obviously, is the most likely. I feel the most confident that Auburn's not going to win that game out of everything left on the schedule. I don't think it's a hot. I don't think it's a hot take either. But that's just one I'm not going to be like.
I watched Tennessee play, in person on Saturday. I think. I think you can. They're beatable. I think Auburn and Tennessee are very comparable basketball teams if you really watch the game close. The issue is winning at that place is going to be hard. I'm a big believer in and you don't play in Knoxville in the NCAA tournament. Like, I think in a neutral site, I think it's a really even game. I think in Neville Arena, it's a really, even game. I think it's an even game all around, but I think, I don't think you win that game. So I agree with you. And I personally, I do think that Auburn's going to beat Alabama. I do think they'll beat Kentucky. I do not think they'll beat Tennessee. And I think that's going to cost them the SEC because you only play, unless Tennessee drops a couple games, they shouldn't, which is why, in all honesty, I think folks should have been rooting for Kentucky on Saturday. Because Auburn will have the head-to-head over Kentucky if they win that game in Neville. And so you need to root for Tennessee to lose a couple games.
Well, here's the ones I'm looking at the schedule here, the remainder. I agree with you. I feel better about Kentucky. I just think Auburn is going to be so ready to play Alabama at home.
And that's the Outlive game, right? Isn't it?
Is it Kentucky or Alabama?
No, it's Kentucky. I'm 99. I'm 90%. Yes, no, I know for a fact it is.
Okay. All right. I was not aware of that. Okay. That's good to know. So everybody, go support Outlive. Awesome video that they put out last week on the Auburn basketball page, if y'all have not seen that, about they kind of did a little sneakeroo of they're going to have a kind of a impromptu media press conference. They snuck Bruce in there. Then instead of it being the media, it was people who were like survivors of cancer, or relatives or friends of those who were, and they were basically just like thanking Bruce for the money that he raised. It was a very touching, emotional thing. Really, really awesome. So, guys, if you have the means when it is the Outlive game, think about donating to an awesome cause. If you're at the game, they'll be selling T-shirts and merch. That also helps support them. You can also get a pretty sick Outlive shirt. I have one. I bought one last year. I really honestly need to buy another one. Just a heads up about the Outlive shirt. I don't know about anybody else there. Go up a size or two. I got an XL, and usually I can fringe large XL depending upon how the shirt fits. This was an Under Armour one. It was a kind of, the dry fit synthetic material. I got broad shoulders. I've got like a little bit narrow over waist. It was kind of, it felt good lengthwise around the waist and around my stomach, but like up in the shoulders, I was just, if I, did any movements like that, didn't really fit well. I would go back, probably get a 2X in that case. So just be a little careful if you're looking for the Outlive shirts. It's an awesome shirt. It's super comfortable.
It is. I just checked. It is the Kentucky game, so I'll be there for that. I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, grab you an Outlive shirt and just remember,
I am going to get
size.
One.
Yeah, get your just up a size. Just be
That's
careful. So I feel good about the Alabama game. I think you'll be ready for that. The ones that you kind of got to circle. I mean, obviously Tennessee. We've already circled Tennessee. The other two that you're like would be Georgia and Florida away. Those could be. I feel a little bit better about Georgia, but they've been trending lately.
Yeah.
Still, you never know. I mean, they dropped that one real ugly last year, just out of nowhere, very uncharacteristically.
But Cario Quindo's gone, so the scary bad man's gone. So there's no need to worry.
And then South Carolina at home, you also feel a little nervous about, because South Carolina's been trending fairly strong.
They have been. I'll tell you what, though. And actually, ironically, the net rankings are not buying in to South Carolina. They beat Kentucky and Columbia, and they beat Tennessee and Knoxville. But the net rankings still have them 38th. But there are some wins, I think, that look better eye test than they do net rankings and on paper. And that South Carolina game is a really good opportunity for you to beat a basketball team that's kind of in that, are they overrated? Are they underrated? What's going on here? To beat a team like that in Neville Arena, kind of like we saw with Ole Miss the first time. I mean, you beat the brakes off of them. I think South Carolina is a good basketball team, but I think Auburn is a much, much better basketball team. If you handle business at home in that one, I just think that's a win that looks good to the committee. Oh, well, South Carolina, they went to Knoxville and won. They beat Kentucky, but Auburn beat them by 13 in Neville Arena. I think it's just a better looking win than it really is on paper.
Well, I want to talk about the Ole Miss game a little bit more.
Okay.
Before we kind of conclude this out. We'll obviously be talking a lot more ball. We may have to do a second episode this week after the Auburn-Alabama game, because that could be a pretty big one. So want to go ahead and shout out our second sponsor. If you have listened to the show, you already know that it's going to be the Opelika and Birmingham Rage Room, both locations. Didn't have a nice segue of like, oh, we lost to Vanderbilt or something like that, which is awesome. I'm happy we don't have to have that again like we did last week, because Alabama and Mississippi State had me in Rage Room mode. This is like not as much in Rage Room mode, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't still go see a Rage Room. Be preemptively mad. It's Auburn sports. Something's gonna happen. Just go ahead and like preemptively get the anger out. If you do have that mode, you're an Auburn fan, you know the benefits. You've many times needed that. Go check them out if you're in the Auburn area, just outside of downtown Opelika on 2nd Avenue, just right down Opelika Road if you're coming from Auburn. They're awesome. OpelikaRageRoom.com. Book your session there. Check them out on social media if you're not quite sure what a Rage Room is. Exactly what it sounds like. Get a big table full of stuff, breakables, windshields, TVs, bottles. You get bats, hammers, all sorts of things. You can go there and smash it to pieces. Total blast. If you're not super into that, they also have a splatter room, big paint fight, tons of fun. Same deal in Birmingham, located in downtown Birmingham, right there in Lakeview, right by St. Vincent's Hospital, if you're familiar with that. Tons of fun there. Check them out, birminghamrageroom.com, at the social medias there. And hey, whatever the location is, make sure to tell them you heard about it on Auburn Daily. Whether you've been there before, just be, hey, I was listening to Auburn Daily show. They gave you guys a shout out. But most importantly, they said, if you will give us some extra stuff if we mention that we heard it on the Auburn Daily Show. So do that. Take advantage of it. Get some extra bucket of bottles. Get an extra stack of plates. Whatever the stuff is, they will give it to you. Maybe it's a windshield. I don't know. They said they're going to hook up any Auburn Daily listeners. So yeah, let us help you get more stuff at the Rage Room. Go check them out. Both the Rage Rooms, both locations. Tons of fun. Let's hope we don't even have to mention next week Auburn gets 2 important wins, Alabama and Florida. We don't even need a Rage Room. Maybe we don't need one for the rest of the season. Wouldn't that be awesome? It's going to really hurt the business, but I'm just going to tell them right now, if it's between the business and Auburn winning the regular SEC tournament, they're going to have to take one for the team, and they understand. They understand how this works. So, back to business here. Let's wrap this up. Talk about the Ole Miss game. I want to mention a few things that were awesome here. We mentioned the second half turnarounds, the insane amount of points, just everything happened. The crazy part is Broom and Chad Baker-Mazara got in foul trouble. You had those highlight dunks.
Oh.
Yeah, you had responses. You had guys hitting threes when it counted almost 45% from deep. Huge response from deep. And that has been something that had been struggling with. Ole Miss, especially in that first half, was just not missing buckets at all. Ole Miss shot 50% the first half from deep. Auburn, on the other hand, shot 36.8, which is not bad. But the second half, they shot 62.5 from deep. They went 5 for 8. Huge response. You do that type of stuff when it counts, when it matters. You win these games. And guess what? Not only did Auburn win, they had a commanding double-digit win. So I'm going to ask you about the Ole Miss game here. Was there a player, because this could be the tough one, who was your MVP player from this game?
I'm going to give you a different answer, because I could sit here and I could say Chad Baker-Mazara, I could say Janai Broom, I could say Jalen Williams. I want to pull up the exact number. So Jalen had 16 points, Broom had 15, Chad Baker-Mazara had 15. You know who really impressed me in this game? K.D. Johnson.
Yes, very efficient. Did not have a lot of minutes, but he made them count.
4 of 4 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 11 points in 13 minutes.
2 free throws as well.
1 technical foul.
Yeah, I love that. I want a technical out of KD, Broom, or Chad Baker-Mazara. I at least want 1 technical a game from them.
You know what's funny? I'm normally a big sportsmanship guy, but that KD foul, I didn't have a care in the world. That putback dunk was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And you got to remember, he's 6 foot, right? Wink, wink, bull crap. That was impressive. That was really cool to see. That was, so I was all in on that one. But KD, I'm going to be honest with you. I've had enough fits in my days about things KD Johnson has done. I think we all have. KD Johnson has, and I'm not talking about technical fouls. I'm talking about passes and why are you shooting that? Why are you driving that? This year, he has been so much better at that, in my opinion. Now, he still has his moments where you go, what are we doing, man? But they're much, much more rare than we've seen in the past. And I think what he brings to the table is so valuable to a basketball team. And when he brings that and actually can help you, scores 10 points and gets a couple boards, a couple assists, it really, he's a really valuable piece to this team. So, I was proud of KD Johnson. I was proud of him. What he's done in this game, what he's done this season, he's really accepted his role and I think grown up as a basketball player.
100%. And one thing you mentioned there too, and I think is a huge aspect of this, they did not, the depth. Ole Miss did not have the depth to keep up with Auburn, and Auburn definitely wore them down. I think that's where you really saw it in the second half. On top of that, they didn't have Sharp that game. So Sharp is 7'5", 7'6", huge fella. He played 18 minutes against Auburn at home. Big man. Not only were you missing a body, you were missing an immense amount of size there as far as a matchup standpoint. So 2 things to really go into the depth and or matchup aspect of this game that was in Auburn's favor. And when guys start getting a little more worn out, getting a little bit more tired, it kind of benefits the guy that's got the gun. So you look here, Ole Miss's 4 of their starting 5, including Flanagan, 32 minutes, 32 minutes, 33 minutes, 36 minutes. Flanagan was the 33, and then 24, 24. And then after that, you had your drop off there. So they play 9 guys. Now, 2 of those were 3 minutes and 2 minutes respectively. So really, Ole Miss was playing 7. The other 7 was 12 minutes. Really, Ole Miss played 6. Let's be honest here. 6.5. That's going to wear out your guys a lot. Now, by contrast here, Auburn spread those minutes out as they do. Nobody played over 30. Jalen played the most of 27. You have 25 with Broom and Trey. Aiden, it's going to be a little interesting. He played 15, so seems to be that Trey's taking the lion's share of those minutes. We'll see what ends up going there. That's kind of another topic for another day.
Yeah.
And then Denver with 26. Glad to see Denver stepping up. But like I said, even though KD had a little bit less minutes, he made every single second count. CBM played 26. So that's where that's going to go. So if you have a team that's only going to play 6 against Auburn, 6.5, like that's going to be really tough to handle when Auburn is just bringing these fresh legs. If you're in there and you're playing 30 plus minutes and you got KD just fresh off the bench, hadn't played in a while, with full energy, like it's like trying to stop a freight train and you hadn't slept in 3 days. It's just not happening. And I mean, I think you saw it. I mean, they lit the fire. They were not ready for the energy Auburn had. So props to them because there were some games kind of scratched their head last few weeks. Like, what are they doing with the rotations here? But it made sense. Did what they needed to on the road. I think that's going to be a huge confidence builder because you're right. The narrative before that is, can this team do the thing on the road? And it was going to be a little bit scary. Like, is this team really going to only be fun to watch at home? And I was getting a little bit nervous there because, like, well, SEC tournament time, March Madness time. Is this going to be another first round SEC tournament loss? Is this going to be another round of 32 bounce that just they had no, worst game of the year type deal? So they got some toughies away.
Yeah. So Auburn just came in at 12 in the AP poll, by the way, just now. Breaking news.
Good news. Yes. Love that. So 12th, they were 16. So yeah, I think they were 8 prior. That might have been a little high. So this is probably a safe spot. But as I kind of mentioned, it's all about the net, which they are 8 in the net as of now. So before we conclude it, Andrew, did you have any other things about this game that you want to say, hey, that's one thing I'm circling? Or even better yet, a tougher question, was there still something that you saw that you were like, didn't like that? Was there a critique you had of this game?
I think we've seen, this is interesting thought here. I think we've seen 2 different Auburn teams over the last couple, over the different styles of team over the last few years. If you remember right, it seems like last year, and sometimes even the year before, Auburn would have a 10-point lead at half, and you would know, oh, this is not safe.
Yeah,
this ain't safe. And they'd play a good first half and then kind of choke down the stretch. This team, I mean, think about it. You've got what were you down? I forget what. I know they were down. It was 14 against. They were down
14 against 14 against Bama,
and then Mississippi State was tied. But this team is kind of coming on in the second half, which I'd rather you just put together 2 great halves. But let's be honest, that's not
9. They were down 9 points against Ole Miss.
So that's my whole point. Is this team is figuring it out when it matters, and I think that's a good thing. I'd rather you play good the whole game, of course. Obviously, if that was an option, I'm going to choose that option. But I like to see that this team goes to halftime down, and they know, hey, we're fine, we're good. And the whole, like you said, the Chad Baker Mazzara talking to the team and kicking out the coaches, that's cool. I've been a part of locker rooms playing baseball where, well, I guess not a lot. There's no halftime in baseball, but stuff like that happens, and it really does help. I mean, sometimes hearing things from a teammate, it hits different than hearing things from a coach. And so that's a real cool leadership moment from Chad Baker Mazzara. But no,
especially being a new transfer too. Like, that's awesome to see that you have
new guy.
You have leadership at all aspects. Your new and-year-old guys. Because I mean, he's not a vet. I mean, he's a veteran of basketball. He's just new to Auburn. I think this is his 3rd year playing. So it's great to know. And I think they keep saying, like, this is one of the tightest knit teams they have. One stat I do want to mention, because we talked about it last week, the assist. Trey getting 6 assists, Broom getting 7, which is crazy. Even in a short amount of time, Aiden still had 3. KD had 3. I would like to see a little bit more out of Denver, but he was shooting the ball pretty good. So, like, hey, if you're going to call your own number, get after it. 25 assists for the game. Love to see it. So glad they listened to the episode. Glad they took some notes on what we were saying.
Yeah, appreciate
but
it.
I mean, yeah, hey, glad we could help. But it just goes there. And also, too, the rebounding was bananas, too. They got 42 rebounds.
Yeah, they dogged them on the boards.
Ole Miss got 26. So if you out rebound like that, yeah, and that's always the thing. And it seems like that always happens with Tennessee, where Tennessee just always out rebounds Auburn.
Yeah.
But if they can keep that up and just out rebound the other team by double digits, you're probably going to win by double digits too. So, but yeah, that's going to wrap that up. Huge game in a few nights against Alabama. Like I said, if all things go to plan, we might have to do a emergency pod one way or another. So just be on the lookout for that. This is the steep part of the schedule. I mean, this is where it's make or break time. There's really no I mean, you look at that Missouri game, you lose that one, it could be bad news bear. So there's really no breaks here. It's all gas. And like I said, a lot of big quad one games, and this could set Auburn up huge for the SEC as well as March Madness. So we're ready. We're going to Buffalo. We're going to be here talking about it all for the remainder of the season. Once a week. If it's big week, we might have to do it twice a week. We might have to do a second episode. Y'all just comment and say, Andrew, second episode. Get them hyped up for it. That's going to conclude us for today's Auburn Daily Show podcast. Make sure to, if it's on like a podcast platform, like, subscribe, review, 5 stars, super, super helpful. If it's on YouTube, I want to thank you out for checking us out there. Make sure to subscribe as well, comment, like the video, tell somebody about it. All those things helps out a ton. Support the show sponsors. That is we love them. They help keep us afloat. They love Auburn. Therefore, we want to love them back. All the things there. All love. And Andrew, tell everybody where they can check you out and what you've got going on before we wrap this up.
Yeah, you can check out everything over at all my written work over at auburndaily.com. When Kentucky game's coming up, those that are interested, I, of course, cover Kentucky basketball as well. You can check out that at wildcatstoday.com, just if you want to get in the mood for the Auburn game when that comes around. And I'll be in town, Auburn family, for the Auburn Kentucky game. So let's get a beer. Hit me up. I'll see y'all there.
Yeah, hit up Andrew. Baseball that weekend too. So
yep,
we got to be pivoting to baseball talk. This is a big hype season for baseball. So we'll be talking about some of that. I'm feeling pretty good about what Butch and the boys got cooking.
Yeah.
I think they really had something going last year. They obviously had some health issues with some of the guys, but they can stay healthy this year. I'm feeling like baseball might be sneaking up on everybody, and they might make a little bit of a run. I'm hoping so. I'm crossing my fingers. I think we got a lot of reason to believe that for those that follow the baseball team closely. So let's wrap us up here. We're still focused on basketball. Big week coming ahead. Like I said, we will be here for it. So thanks everybody for listening, and be staying tuned for that. Of course, tomorrow's episode will be the Top Button podcast with Charlie 5. So make sure to check that out. Charlie's always delivering the best stuff there. For today, that's all we got. We're wrapping it up. We'll see you next time.